Looks like everyone's making their way into their seats. It's great. We're so glad that you're here, and welcome to our 5th annual Elder Speak presented by the Ripple Foundation. My name is Drew Zabrocki, and I'm the board president of the Ripple Foundation, and thank you so much for being here today. What an amazing group of people, so many new faces. It's nice to see. It's absolutely incredible. You know, your participation, your financial support is very much appreciated, but it's your presence here today that is most meaningful, so thank you very much. We have a fantastic program for you today. At this beautiful venue, we'd like to give a thank to Icicle Creek Center for the Arts. They have been longtime supporters of the Ripple Foundation for so many years, wonderful hosts who want to show our appreciation for Icicle Creek Center for the Arts, and so many other supporters that we have over the year. Eagle Creek Winery, I mean, come on, I see you guys are enjoying Eagle Creek Winery here. We couldn't have it without them, right? It's, again, a longtime supporter of the foundation. We greatly appreciate their support. We encourage you, if you haven't gone up to the winery, it's a beautiful place. It's a short drive out of time, so thank you for Eagle Creek Winery. Davis Furniture has been a longtime supporter for years now. They're going through a remodeling, so all of their furniture is in storage, but we encourage you to check out Davis Furniture when they come back online shortly. And of course, Cashmere Valley Bank, our bank, Cashmere Valley Bank. And last but not least, of course, the long list of supporters that have been with us for so long. There's so many to mention here on this next slide that'll be coming up as soon as our slideshow catches up. You know, there's always some technical thing, right, that has to get there. There's so many people that have helped us over the years, and you know, you can help us by supporting our sponsors and letting them know that you appreciate their support of the Ripple Foundation. So thank you. I would like to take just a moment to acknowledge our team. So if you have been, whether now or in the past, a steward or a staff member or on the board of directors, if you could just rise from your seat so we could acknowledge those that have really made a meaningful contribution. That means you guys, the staff members and boards and stewards, and those that are part of the foundation, and those that have, thank you very much. It takes a lot of work to put on these programs, and such amazing people here, so we appreciate them. You know, and now is the time where really the work that we're doing is so important. You know, in this age of connections, things move by so quickly. And you know, we think about all of the connections in our lives, but the challenge here today is that oftentimes those connections are digital, right? They're connected to Wi-Fi or to our phones, and the art of storytelling and how we connect with people has dramatically changed in recent years, right? It's easy to lose the value of the moment, right? To just be able to enjoy ourselves in the moment. It's easy because life can be kind of a tangled mess at times, right? Things move by so quickly with so much happening. And how do we take the time to just stop, be present, enjoy the value for what's unfolding, be able to connect in a meaningful way with those that are important with our lives? Like, this Elder Speak program is just one example of how we just pause for a moment to connect in a meaningful life. But it's more than just that. When you think about the time that we share with others, and how we can help to well, see, here just happened right now. Did you see that, how I lost it? You see how I just lost the connection with others, right? So it's not like you learn this and like you're perfect at it forever. Like, it's a continuous journey. Oh my gosh, this life, a juicy mess with all the stuff happening in life. And really, we just want to connect with those that are important in our lives. And how do we do that? Like, how do we actually learn the tools to navigate life? Well, we participate in events. in programs, right? We spend time with other folks that also care about sharing stories and experiences and being able to unpack and unfold life's juicy mess, and like, how do you survive and transition through life as we age and as we bring on new parts of our families. And it's important, like, even when you think you're in tune to it and you think that like you've experienced life and you know what to do and you're going to share your kids, like, it's easy to lose track, right? So how do we get back on track? How do we unlock these or how do we perfect the tools to unlock the value of life and to navigate life? Well, you know what? That's exactly what the Ripple Foundation is all about. And so imagine for a moment if everyone in your life, your friends, your neighbors, the people that you worked with, they could make a conscious choice to respond as opposed to react in the moment, right? What if we were just more aware of ourselves in relationship to others, and we were also more mindful of their sensitivities? Like, these are simple things, but they're hard to do, right? It takes time to develop these skills, to become more aware of them, but it makes a huge difference. I know personally in my life that when I've been able to get out of my head and what I think about things and be able to just consider how I feel about them and allow those feelings to direct the actions that I take, whether it's with my daughter and making a choice of how I interact with her or where I spend my time, right? So these are the tools that really help us to navigate life. And this is what the Ripple Foundation is all about. And so we would like to invite you to learn a little bit about the Ripple Foundation and all of the classes and workshops and retreats that we offer. In fact, there's one coming up here, our flagship program. Go ahead and skip one more if you would. It's Inward Bound. And so if you're curious, if you're seeking that next step in the journey, maybe you're going through transitions, right? Life's full of transitions. Maybe pain is involved. That's perfect. You're in the right spot. And Inward Bound is our flagship course. It's available in January, where we help to line out the tools and provide you with an amazing insight into what you can do to gain a better understanding of yourself and your relationship with others. And it's just an amazing course. It's been absolutely incredible for myself and many of the people that are involved. There's a few others that I'd like to share with you available on our website. So if you haven't done so already, you can learn about the things that I'm going to tell you on our website. It's theripplefoundation.org, and there's a ton of stuff to share. I want to get on with the program, so I'm going to move a little more quickly through these following slides. So when you go to our website, you can check out the events coming up. So we have mindful facilitation, right? So Inward Bound is all about yourself and relationship with others, but isn't it nice to also work with people who are mindful, to have productive groups? So what we did is we took all the depth work from Inward Bound and we converted it into a one-day workshop where you can bring your business associates, your teammates, maybe you serve on a board, and it would be nice to have a much more productive environment where people are working together and mindful of each other and coming to productive outcomes. We've got an excellent course for you. Everybody that has attended has been like, gosh, I got to bring more people to this. One of our most popular events, Mindful Facilitation. And then I'm really excited to share with you Ancient Wisdom and Modern Insights, a brand new course. It starts next month in October. Astrology, you can go to our website and you can learn more about it. But when you think about astrology, there's mixed emotions like all across the room. Like, either it's taboo, or I don't know anything about it, I'm totally unclear what the stars have to do with anything, or maybe I really am curious in learning more about that relationship of self, of community, and the universal connectedness of how it all comes together, then this is perfectly for you. So whether you are interested in learning more or you want to perfect the knowledge that you have, astrology is coming up in October and in November. So you'll want to make sure and get on our website and check that out. And then lastly, just a couple more announcements. Mindful aging is just a lot of fun. You can join us. Anybody that's going through the journey of aging. Is anybody not aging in the room? Tell me how you do that. But it's a wonderful event. You can join us in October. If you'd like more information, contact Deb, Teresa, or any of us, and we can get you connected, or just show up. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So we hope that you will enjoy that and join us at some of those programs. There's a lot to see and do on our website. There's also been a tremendous amount of activity on Facebook, including some videos, which are really cool. So if you go to Facebook, you can see there's a whole host of videos. And this particular video here, and the other three that you'll see on the right-hand side, or I guess, yeah, your right-hand side, is videos that we did with the students that produced the film that you're going to see today as part of the event. So a lot of people didn't realize that Elder Speak is actually year-round, right? So we're meeting with the elders year-round, but we also have an amazing group of students at the Wenatchee Valley Technical Skills Center that work to envision how they're going to capture their experiences with the elders. So they're planning out the sets, the interview questions, they're setting up cameras and audio gear, and they're actually in full control of producing this video as part of an assignment with the Wenatchee Valley Technical Skills Center. And it's been absolutely amazing just to see things unfold and to see them really become engaged in connecting with the elders. It's a lot of fun, and we wanted to provide just a little bit of a glimpse of what that's like. So we have some behind-the-scenes video on our Facebook page. And if you're one of the 6 billion people on the earth that have Facebook, we would really appreciate that little like button. I know it seems silly, but it goes a long way when you share our posts. We're always posting cool things and events. When you see them and you share those events, it really helps us to broaden our community, right? It helps us to get that word out there. And guys, it's our community that enables us to make such an impact. I'll give you an example. So this year, Art in a Park generously increased their donation to the Ripple Foundation. They were really excited about what we were doing in connecting generations through Elder Speak with our Inward Bound courses and how we really help people to create these connections in their lives and in the lives of others. And they wanted to further that, so they gave a generous contribution. We paid all of that forward, well over $1,000, to the Wenatchee Valley Technical Skills Center, and we passed it to these students. And they got so excited. They're going to use the money to buy a drone. And you think, okay, what are they going to do with a drone? But you think about it. It's a different generation. It's a different way of connecting. It's a different way of telling stories. These are kids that are passionate about telling stories through video. And they want to use this drone to share new perspectives, different ways of telling the story and connecting generations. And that's just a full circle effect of how your contributions, your support make a meaningful difference in our community. And we rely on your support. Every single hour that you volunteer, every tax-deductible dollar that you invest in the Ripple Foundation makes a meaningful difference, not just today, but for generations. Right? So whether it's $50 or it's $50,000, whether you're going to write that check today or you want to make it part of a monthly contribution, or perhaps you're inspired to have us be part of your estate planning, every single contribution of time and resources goes to help our community and for generations, and it is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much. And now it's time for Elder Speak. So Steve Stroud is going to be joining me on the stage here today to introduce the program. Steve is our executive producer and founder, and he'll make his way up here as soon as he gets the hint. Come on up, Steve. And he's going to go ahead and introduce the program today. Thank you all here for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Drew, and thanks for being here. Elder Speak, Connecting Generations. So, my mom passed away in December, and now there's an empty chair at our table. And somehow, in that transition, I became the patriarch. How could that happen? I can't even find socks that match, and I'm supposed to be the patriarch? And how can that happen? How can that transition happen when I still clearly remember squeezing between the steering wheel and my grandfather's knee so I could drive the Jeep down that dirt road? And how can that happen when it's my grandson that squeezes between the steering wheel and my knee so we can drive down that dirt road? How does this happen? I might not know how it happens. I do know it does happen. How do we stay connected? Elder Speak is one effort to bridge the thread, to bring the thread of our generations together. There's a place that I resist that because I still want to squeeze between the steering wheel and my grandfather's knee. But I can remember that, and I can bring that forward and have that experience with my grandson. I can connect the generations. There are many ways to do that, but one foundational way is with respect for our elders and for taking on the mantle of this generational shift and to looking to the elders to bring us some continuity in our lives that are so full of transition. Elder Speak is a labor of love. It's a labor of respect, and it's a labor of courage. Elder Speak is the work of Elder Speak derives from the heart and soul of two members of the Ripple community, Deb Popst and Teresa DeLitzenberger, who will be up here in a minute. The work that they've done will only be seen just barely because the work that they've done is so deep. So what's brought forth today and how profound it will be, because I know it will be, you can be rest assured that there is more riches to be discovered in this process. So without further ado, I would invite Deb and Teresa to come up, and they will forward the program. Thank you.
Okay, we can all go home now. That was so beautiful. Thank you, Steve. Thank you all for coming, and thank you, Mountain Meadows, for being here. And to all the elders from past years, could you raise your hand or stand up and let us thank you for coming? Oh, look at that. Thank you. Thank you for continuing to bring your wisdom into our community. It means so much. So as Steve said, Deb and I gathered with the elders all year long. And what do? We sit around a table and we talk about, well, what were your experiences? What did you do? And what did you learn from those experiences? What wisdom came from your life? It's not an easy question to answer. But what helped is that we sat around a table. And so I'd like to enlarge that table to include all of you. We are all deeply sitting in our chairs, listening to the wisdom of our elders, connecting, sharing, and being part with them.
Thank you. Our elders this year are courageous beyond belief. The challenges they have faced have been some of life's greatest challenges. Grief has visited our table 3 times this year. And the resilience, the grace in which it has been actually welcomed to that table has shown wisdom beyond words. It's hard to talk. So I'd like to say how blessed we have been, how blessed we all are to be here in the presence of these elders this year, and the depth of experience that they are willing to share. Jim Burtz is not able to be with us. Jim is here. Everett. Jim's father is not able to be with us because of an illness, and he asks that his son stand in his place and read for him. So we are very grateful to you, Jim, for coming and being willing to do that. And we're grateful to all of you for being here. So thank you.
Okay, so as Drew talked about, we have a film. As a reminder for those who have not been here, this film is done like immediately after everyone agrees to be an elder for Elder Speak. So they really haven't had a lot of time to think about their lives or their wisdom, and they are just coldly facing who they are and what they know. And so this is the film that the students created.
At a very early age for myself, I was very shy, had a bad stutter, and would go to school and people would laugh at me, and I didn't know what to say back to them because I was so shy. But my folks put up with that. I corrected it myself. By 10 years old, I probably was free of both of those. Not the shyness. I've carried that throughout my life, but I have learned any one of us could take that as a lesson, and we all have faults and we all have things that bother us about our personality, our looks, our dress, or whatever, but it's okay to be different. We weren't from a wealthy family by a long ways. There were many nights that our dinner was bread and milk, but it was a type of existence that was not easy for all of us. So I took on the job of raising chickens. During that period, I did graduate from high school, and I went to college. And after being there a year, lo and behold, I got caught up in the alcohol problem. I joined a fraternity, and I was not strong enough, mentally wise, I guess, to avoid that. My grades went down and down and down. I said to myself, finally, I need to do something here. And lo and behold, I met a young lady. We dated for a year, and after I married, and that changed my whole life around. From there on, I was on the dean's list and graduated from the college with a good record. I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I took business administration, which is a pretty broad field. And I went to work with a company called Zellerbach Paper Company. Lo and behold, they asked me if I wanted to be transferred to Moscow, Idaho. And so I went to Moscow and moved down there. And one day, I was in a drive-in restaurant in Pullman. And I got to talking to the fellow who became a pretty good friend, and I thought to myself, you know, maybe I really should take on a business instead of working for somebody else. So I looked in the paper, talked to a real estate person, and he said, well, there's a drive-in restaurant in Cheney, Washington that's for sale. So I bought that restaurant. We went to Spokane and we bought another drive-in. Then I thought, well, why not get into the steakhouse business? So I went back to Cheney and we built a steakhouse. So now I had 3 restaurants going at one time, and I thought to myself, boy, you know, I made a lot of money there. I'm going to retire the rest of my life. I was probably about 37. I think the bottom line is that you need to be responsible yourself. You need to be resourceful. You need to be dependable with strong work ethics. Those factors will go a long ways in helping you go through life. You need to earn your way, and you need to take the initiative to reach for higher goals. Those are important keys to becoming a successful person.
Then in 1954, at the age of 25, I met a flyboy from Fairchild Air Force Base. He had been called into service because the Korean War was now starting. So I had moved from the depot of the Korean War up, and he had been recalled to service and determined to make his career. So we were married in 1954. We invested, I had 2 children then, they followed closely. We invested in a duplex. So already we know, you know, we lived on one side, rented the other side, and life seemed to be pretty well planned. In 1969 or so, the Vietnam War came along. The Vietnam War was a tragedy nationally, a tragedy in my life. At first there was that stark fear of a husband in combat. He was no longer flying in B-52s. They had adapted an older aircraft, and they called it Puff the Magic Dragon. Puff the Magic Dragon could spew fire and smoke and utter chaos in South Vietnam. Agent Orange, all those good things. When the husband, father, came home, he was starkly a different man in personality and character. Some vestiges of PTSD. And that turned into alcoholism. The marriage ended. I started over. And real estate, it was a natural fit. It was, again, an opportunity I took, built, imagined, I'm not sure what, but it dealt with land. It dealt with houses. It was an educational for the 35 years I was in it. And I worked land and houses from the Cascades to across the Columbia River. And it was a perfect fit. After 35 years, I'm now ready to retire. But I treasure all those people that gave me the privilege of being in their life. And still, I'm marching to a different drummer because I don't know what's next. But there is an opportunity. I'll find it. I'm always writing little sticky notes with little sayings on them. And this little sticky note says, "You're alive. Keep living, keep learning, and keep loving."
Let me start where I was born, and that was in May, Washington. My folks had come there from the Waterville Plateau. In 1936, we moved to the home on Horse Lake Road. and we began accumulating small ranches. We were raising cattle, hay for the first few years, and we then changed to growing wheat. During high school, my dad needed help on the farm. It was World War II. My brothers were in the service. My early schooling was kind of interrupted by the lack of transportation from our home to the Wenatchee Valley. And that's where I was lucky enough to have mentors. Two of my teachers and a man that I later worked for gave me a chance to earn enough money to go to college. And I owe a great debt to those mentors because they went to my folks and said, "Get this boy back into school." My father thought that I was the logical one to take over the farm when he no longer wanted to do it. He was disappointed in me when I chose to go into science and become a research biologist. I had a friend in high school, and he knew a lot of people from around the state even. And so at college, we were in the same fraternity, and in college, he introduced me to several people that he knew from 4-H, and one of them happened to be a little blonde girl from Montesano that's still my wife after 65 years. I imagine life to be alone. I had an uncle who never married, and I always felt sorry for him. Time that you spend together with a loved one or someone you hold dear is a very valuable asset to anyone's life. It was my mentors that gave me the impetus and the chance, the financial chance actually, to go to college. Every professor in the department gave me work whenever they could so that I could continue to go to college. I earned a bachelor's degree at Washington State University and a master's and PhD at Oregon State. And when I finished my bachelor's degree, I was able to finance my graduate work as a junior professor. In 1958, a position came open at the Tree Fruit Research Center, and I applied and was hired for that position and worked for the university then through the professor ranks until 1994 when I retired. My early life on the farm was instrumental in solidifying the relationship that I had as a scientist with farmers. And I always thought that that was my major goal, was to do things that would make life better for farmers.
When I was 10 years old, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer, and we received the fourth child in our family all around the same time. And that was a treasure, because I got to appreciate this little dumpling of a sister with whom I am still close. She and I are the only surviving members of our family. So I have a very close relationship with her, and she's considerably younger than I am. And during the next 10 years, we watched our mother battle so strongly to be present for her children. And sadly, she didn't make it. She died when I was 19. I was the oldest of 4 children. And that helped to define my life in a way I don't think in a direction I would have taken if I hadn't had that sense of loss. So I think I learned about loss early in life. I suppose, upon reflection, that the support of my dad in convincing me through word and deed and action and encouragement that I could do anything I wanted to do, I believed him. I was going to be an editor in New York. I had a big plan, and it didn't include teaching, but of course, circumstance changed. But the whole idea of tackling something that I had no experience in, politics, I'd never been elected to anything, well, class officer, and I guess I could say as a nerd, my favorite class, I had two favorite classes besides English. I loved my typing class, which served me well as an English major, and I loved civics. I loved the workings of government. I think that's where I really understood and believed in democracy and the vote. I knew that was where my voice could be heard. It's not about what's on the table, but who's at the table. So I look at all of you as being at the table, and that's the way I've lived my life. My life is about the who, not the what. I'm about relationships, building relationships, whether it was with my students, my friends, my children. It's the most rewarding thing a person can do. And I'm here to say, in my infinite wisdom, it's the best thing you can do.
So the screen's going to go up, and we are going to bring the elders on stage. And while we are going on stage, I wanted to remind you that on the back of your program are spaces for you to write down anything you hear that inspires you, or maybe a question you might have, because after everyone speaks, you get a chance to ask questions. And we certainly welcome those questions. Are you comfortable?
I'm comfortable.
Okay, you get to be first.
Oh, boy.
So, Suzanne,
Yes, Teresa.
you have an amazing ability to understand the deepest sense of people. You are kind, funny, and you have a way of creating ease.
Thank you.
You hold a steadfast commitment to the highest achievement within each person. Your belief that people can achieve their best builds strong character and self-awareness in others. Finally, your commitment to building compassionate relationships and healthy communities brings community and resilience to us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's the question.
Okay.
You talk a lot about relationships, and there's been a lot that's gone on in your life in the past and in the present. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, let's do. First of all, hello. Hello. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you to these beautiful people who've been part of the last year of my life. A phrase came up in conversation about mindful aging. And I want to impart a little bit of wisdom about mindful aging. If you're not in the moment, you're not present. And you can leave your keys in the door inadvertently. You can put a credit card someplace you never thought you'd put a credit card. So I say to you, as we all age, be mindful. It's important. Now, about those relationships, I have had the awareness of relationship building in my life for as long as I can remember. It began with being well parented, well loved and supported and nurtured. So my first relationships were with my parents and with my siblings. And those are lasting even when they are no longer with you. I moved on to a relationship of 57 years with a man whom I loved deeply and who loved me as well. And that gave me confidence, probably for the sandwich filling of my life. That relationship was my rock, my foundation as an adult, and it also helped me expand into relationship with my children. A treasured interaction. And now that I'm an elder and they're older, that mother-son relationship has become a solid friendship. And that has such deep value. I couldn't even begin to quantify how impactful and how special that relationship is. The relationship with friends. I hope I can articulate it. It's what brings meaning to every day of my life. Some of you know that I'm in a very vulnerable place right now, which explains my emotion. Others of you don't know, and that's okay. What I want you to know is that friendships, well-meant, long-lived, are one of the deepest wellsprings of life. And I hope those of you who came with friends and family today understand the value of relationships. In the end, as I said earlier, it's not about the what, it's about the who. What I hope is that someday I have a very large table, and those of you who know me know how much I love gathering people around the table. I haven't been able to do that very much of late. I hope to do it again, because that is another thing that matters deeply. I'm grateful that you are all here. I'm grateful that you have each brought your own wisdom to this table today. You have so much to share.
Suzanne, I have a question for you that comes up for me. You talk about having friends. What, in your experience, do you need to be a friend?
I don't know. Let's ask some of my friends. Let's see what they have to say. You know, I'm looking at one right now who tells me that I'm a good listener. And she has told me that for years and years and years. So I believe her. I think I'm a good listener. And I think I engage. When I ask you a question, one thing you'll never hear from me is the old, how about those Mariners? I don't do small talk. It makes my palms sweat. I like to get into the meat of a conversation. So I think being compassionate, understanding empathy, trying to be where your people are when you encounter them, to listen to them, to ask questions to gain a deeper understanding. I think those are the qualities of being a good friend. And may I say, I have reached out to so many of you over the years, and you've always been there.
So it sounds like showing up.
Showing up, it's a good start.
Thank you. Are you ready for this?
Almost.
Almost, okay. So first to introduce you, you hold a strong sense of perseverance and courage. You show that commitment and devotion to any purpose creates the possibility for anything to happen. You show willingness to learn and grow at any age. May went to Inward Bound this last year at 90. And you have a wonderful sense of fun, of laughter, and of play. You are dedicated to the well-being of others and to the healthy growth of our community. You have a seamless ability to pave the way for others to feel at ease while also holding them to high ethical standards. So May,
Your question.
you have a lot of history to share, but there's only pieces of it that you really like to share. What would you like to share today?
Well, I think beginning, you see that clip, the film that was shown to all of you, I had not seen that till about a week ago. And I had pause and wonder as to why those students, why those young people, out of a whole hours of interview, picked that portion. Because I know I did better. Emotionally, I did better. So we'll go back a little bit before we got to that point. Like Jim and Everett and I, we all grew up at a rural farm, close to poverty, but we didn't see it that way. It was home. We just did what we did. We made our own entertainment. We had the first natural chewing gum before we got into all this natural stuff, you know. You'd go out and shake a little bit of wheat chaff in your hands, throw it in your mouth, chew it, and you got gum. I've got a story about straws, too. But in that business of living in a very rural life away from country, I had an older sister and eventually a younger brother. I'm about 7 years older than my brother. We learned to play in the barnyard with the chickens, chase the chickens. You knew which hen was going to chase you, and you might find out where she hid her eggs so that you could go find the empty nest and throw them in the hot pot. But anyway, that was that very rural life. Cut off, what did we say? We didn't have any cultural upbringing. The neighbors, first neighbors were about 3 miles away. Friends were 5 miles away. And so I entered school very culturally deprived and a little bit introverted and shy and all those things that we rural kids knew because we're from the Hicks, so to speak. Well, that gets you through the early life, and I spent elementary school in Mansfield. There were about 8 of us in our class. I was the fattest one. Obesity's the game. Okay, and I was also the clumsiest one, and I was the last one picked to play baseball. But that's okay. The shock came when, with all the most beautiful intent, my parents sent me and my sister to boarding school. Now, we came from a very strong Masonic family, which was all the controversy of the day. They sent us to a Catholic boarding school in Spokane. That's shock number 1. You learn to adapt. I was still so homesick. I lost 15 pounds, big deal. Dad gave us the opportunity to come back to Mansfield to school midterm if we wanted to, but you learned the lesson. You've been gone. You don't fit at home, and you really are uncomfortable where you are. Well, he cured that the following year and bought a place in East Wenatchee. You might recognize it on the corner of Grant Road and Eastmont. Welcome to Arby's. Anyway, that, again, was a new shock. Here we are, still kids from the country going to Wenatchee High School, walking the bridge if you miss the bus, that kind of thing. So you get through the high school, and as Jim and Everett, we all went to college. That was uncommon in those years. This is 1946, 47, especially uncommon for girls. But my dad was determined that we should have an education. So you finish college, and then you go on to find a job, do different things. So when I think it basically said that at 25, 23, 24 something, out of college, went down to Pasco to get my first job. The first job was working for the Corps of Engineers, government job. And then a few years, and that was Korean War. And then I moved up to Spokane, and that's where that story takes off that you've already seen. Now, you get back to Vietnam. I, looking at the audience, would say that many of you have memories. And the thing that I learned during that marriage of 15 years and associated with military dependency, you became very accustomed to husband, father being gone for 10 days at a time, 3 months at a time, in TDYs and training missions and all this thing. And then we come up with this thing called Vietnam. And looking back, you see, that's what maybe the kids wanted to know that I only recently discovered for myself. Where did I really get the strength to do the other things I've done in life? I was trained as a dependent to be independent. Because when you spend a year, as maybe some of you have, or some of your loved ones have, and you know that there is a life over there that is in peril, it's like, this may be overdramatic, but it's like spending a year in the ICU waiting room, the emergency waiting room. You learn to live one day at a time, and you hope, just hope for another day. So that's where that comes from. That's my 5 minutes, isn't it?
I'm so grateful. I am so grateful you shared that, because I imagine there's many of us who have been in that place of.
There are people in that place all the time. Our military people serve in a community that civilians cannot possibly understand.
But it's not just that, it's learning that living day to day gets you through.
And you do it. I was very fortunate. There's a lot of young women, and husbands too, whose wives have gone overseas in this last bit. But you learn, and many of them will live on bases, and they have that common holding your breath. I was fortunate another way in that I moved back to the Wenatchee Valley, and I had family to support and keep the ball going and to observe some of the traditions and things that we had always had. So we were made strong in that way as well.
That's great. So, May, the other thing about you is your resilience. You could not stay married. It just didn't feel like the right thing for your family. And you've changed businesses often until your latest one. So what builds resilience?
Confidence in yourself. And it's hard to build what I would say is that confidence and that moral compass or moral courage or whatever it takes. And in looking back through this, I have not transformed. It is a transition period that we have all been going through. But I have to go back and look at that early days on the farm, all attention, concentration, take care of yourself. You know, take the hoe if you think you're going to find a rattlesnake. Those are kinds of a building of strength. Then I have to give credit again to the circumstances. My parents being into that whole Masonic thinking, ritualistic, memorizing, and of course when we moved to Wenatchee then, one of my strongest social associations, which I share with my friend over here, was Rainbow Girls. Again, it's a ritualistic process you go through. And in repeating those things, you are constantly thinking faith, hope, charity, truth, trust. These are part of your ritual. Do unto others, judge not. So those were ingrained, and along with that sort of self-confidence or whatever. Because through all of this, I was kind of a shy kid. But those things stayed, and they stuck. And to this day, they're there. And so as you read on the back of the pamphlet, I've tried to sum it up, is that you build your courage. And it is that courage and that confidence and the feeling that there is support all around. You take on a sort of, well, this can't fail. So, you know, like that year or the time I said, well, you know, I think on that full podcast that you can watch Rufus interview me, I went in with a mindset that there were certain things I wanted to say. So Rufus could hardly get a word in edgeways. That was a monologue. So how do you arrive at decisions? So many times we think our decisions are snap decisions, but they really aren't. You've had some sort of an inkling. The mind doesn't forget. The body remembers. Those kinds of things. And so the decision to open, see, I worked at the regional library, and I really loved that work. So I would remember saying, read everything, read anything. And I haven't done that for years, so now that's what I'm doing. But anyway, working in the library, I just started to say, I need a better income. I need to make a better life. So my daughters and I would often go to Leavenworth and buy an ice cream cone and stuff. And Leavenworth didn't even exist when we'd go up there to buy an ice cream cone. But on one of those return trips on the 4th of July, my daughter said, well, I said, you know, of all the things I've considered, like growing mushrooms in the basement, that was a good one. Then we decided, you know, I could probably run a fabric shop. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, I think, Mother, you could do that. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought about it overnight. Picked up the phone, called a lady in Chelan, and said, what do you do? Oh, she says, come on up on Thursday, we'll figure it out. I opened that shop 3 months later. You know, you take the resources you have, you put them where you're going. And it wasn't exactly successful till about the time the recession of 1980 came along. Well, I didn't put it as a recession. After all, things were coming, everything was going really well, and, you know, Leavenworth, of course, again, having worked at the library, I wanted a view. So I chose a location to open my shop that was nothing like you should do. I was on the back side of town. You were hard to find, and there was no sign that was going to get them there. But word of mouth works, and so it was working out. So where was I going with that?
I don't know where you're going.
Now, you see, anybody sitting in the audience would say, that knows me, would say, I really don't even know that person. But anyway, we opened this store. It went well until it didn't go well. And basically, at that time, I blamed it on the spotted owl, Endangered Species Act. I blamed it on Boeing. They closed the doors. And so, but nonetheless, all of a sudden it was going down. here was this little thing, and I'm looking around and say, hey, you know, I'm bankrupt. What shall I do?
That's resilience.
Resilience is good. Anyway, I decided that I could do real estate, and there were those that were ready to help me do it. I didn't have any idea, you know, other than growing up on a ranch and knowing there were sections and townships and, you know, all this kind of thing. I decided the only way to figure out where I am on the ground is to get a map. Well, let's go back to '83. We didn't even have a decent planning department. So where did I go? I went down to the title company, who were kind and generous, and they would let me take the section pages. This is section 14, townships. And I arranged those section pages in a map, all the way up the Chumstick. It was 26 feet long. And you would find your markers. Am I about to run out of time?
You're running out of time.
Okay. Anyway, real estate was good. And I was blessed, absolutely blessed, with the best kind of mentors and associates and teammates and buyers and sellers there's a world full of. I met only the beautiful people. Thank you.
Thank you, May.
Thank you, May. Now I would like to address Everett. Everett, we hope you get to see and hear this. It's been an honor to get to know you. Everett's kindness and respect for others has touched us deeply. He has shown us that we are never too old to learn or try something new. Everett has the ability to bring calm and knowledge to any situation. His calm acceptance of illness and the willingness to continue to participate in Elder Speak has touched all of our hearts and minds deeply. Everett is a true example of wisdom born of knowledge. And now I'd like to introduce Jim Birds, Everett's son, who will be sharing with us.
Thank you. Since we're in a theater, I would like to ask you all to use your imagination and pretend that I am smarter and wiser, and I will do my best to channel my father as we go through this. So, Dad sent us a little page, and I'd like to read this, so I'm going to read it in his place. Some of this you've already seen. I was born in a farmhouse in May Valley, just west of where Moses Lake is now, September 25th of 1931. Like a lot of people here, he was born at home with a midwife. He was the fourth of 5 sons born to my grandfather and grandmother. In July of '36, they moved to Horse Lake Road, and Dad said at that time, the road was so narrow that the dual wheels on their truck would sometimes hang over the edge. So this kept Grandpa very focused when he was driving. They paid $2,000 for the farm, but this was a depression. And at that time, this was a lot of money. And in order to make the payments, they did without quite a bit. Dad tells me that he and his younger brother Lee spent the summer without shoes so they could save that money for the winter when it was cold. And one week he said they had potatoes and lard, and that was their dinner. So anyway, as he said in the film, school wasn't important to my grandparents, but my dad loved to learn things. And his mentors helped him get into school. And so he graduated from Wenatchee High School in 1950 and then attended Wenatchee Junior College for a year. And then he went to Wenatchee Valley College, which is what it was called back in those days. He graduated in 1954, and he met a co-ed who later became his wife. I'm eternally grateful for that. Together they enrolled at Oregon State College, and in 1958, after getting his doctorate degree, he returned to Wenatchee to become a research entomologist for the research center. He retired in April 13th of 1994, And during that time, our grandfather, his dad, passed away. So his younger brother, Lee, and he farmed the Horse Lake area until 2001, when they decided that they had had enough. Throughout my life, I have benefited from mentors. Growing up on the ranch without children my age left me socially challenged, to put it politically correct. A high school friend and his family gave me those skills. From my mother, I learned the value of hard work. From my first assistant at Wenatchee, I learned self-discipline. However, the most significant of my many mentors were the two high school teachers, Jess Helm and Lee Percival, and E.W. or Ted Anthon, my first boss at the research center. They cleared many obstacles, allowing me to complete college. Now the lands that once were our farm are part of the Horse Lake Preserve, and if any of you have been up there, you know what a great area that is. So the following bits of wisdom I would like to pass on to those attending Elder Speak. There's a difference between wisdom and knowledge. Knowledge is the tools you need to do the job, and wisdom is the ability to know which tool to use. One should not go into debt until you have a job to provide a way to repay the debt. Dad talked a lot about money. I wish I'd listened better. One owes his boss punctuality. Few things are more unfair than making a boss wait on you. Never underestimate the value of mentors. Not only can they advise a person, they can also clear the obstacles in your path. Choose them wisely and let them help you. Peer pressure can be a cruel form of abuse. It is usually a selfish act of someone who is trying to justify errant behavior. The recipient of such pressure should seek help from any and all sources. To parents and grandparents, I say, teenagers struggling with the stress of getting past those last days of childhood and becoming adults will pay more attention to what you do in their presence than what you say. Set a good example, but leave out words like, when you get to be my age, you'll understand, or when I was your age, and then fill in the dot. So he finishes up, thank you for the chance to participate in the program. I've learned much from working with you and the three other members of the team. With best regards, Everett.
So, Jim, do you have more you'd like to share?
I've got a lot of dad stories, but I don't know how much time we have.
I think one of the things I would like to hear from you is if there's some way you can convey to all of us how your dad's wisdom has affected your life.
I think my dad's wisdom has affected the entire valley. He's been involved in so many things, from the Horse Lake Preserve to the Elk Foundation to creating the Snowmobile Club and all of these things. And when we sat around the table, Dad would usually listen quietly while we talked about something, and then he would speak, and that was the answer. Most of the good things that have happened in my life have been because I've listened to him. Sometimes his advice was specific, sometimes very general, sometimes humorous, particularly, James, don't do anything stupid and you'll be just fine. Which is the one I should have listened to the most.
Well, please share one of your stories with us.
Well, growing up on the farm as Dad did, being poor, he learned to be very adaptive. At the research center, he actually has 2 patents that belong to WSU that he created. One of them, a nozzle that can put a 1/4 ounce of material on an acre evenly, which is pretty remarkable because he wasn't a physicist, he was an entomologist, but he just learned things. An example, perhaps, of the resilience and ability to solve problems. We were way up near Twin Peaks on the logging roads, and our old Ford pickup and a tire went flat. So in those days, the jack was under the hood, or it should have been. Somebody, who might have been me, had used that jack for another project, and here we were 5 miles from the barn in the nearest jack. And Dad gave me that look that only dads can give for a couple of minutes. And then he realized we had an alternative. In the back of the truck were these big cast iron weights that we used for traction. And so he handed me the shovel and said, dig a trench. And then he put that weight there and drove the truck onto that. And as the wheel went down into the hole, the axle landed on that weight and we were able to change the tire. So that was better than that 5-mile walk back and then the 5-mile walk with a heavy jack back to. So anyway, he let me put the weight back in the truck and fill the hole up. And then after that, I put the jack back under the hood where it belonged.
That's wonderful.
I think that's a new dimension to elder speak. We should have the next generation.
Yeah, I think I like this.
Thank you. So, yeah. It was growing up with my dad and my mom together. They were like the ultimate parents as far as I can see. And I know they're the only parents I have, so I might be a little bit prejudiced. But Dad never made it feel like we were in the way. Whether we were working on the farm and I was handing him tools, or whether he was dragging these 2 clumsy kids through the woods trying to find a deer, he always made us feel like we were important to him. He was always willing to share his wisdom with us. And when we'd go walk in the woods, it was like a biology and entomology lesson, or it was a history lesson, because he was either telling us why those beetles ate the bark, or why that plant might be dying, or why you should stay away from the one with the white berries on it. Or he was telling us who built that road, or who planted that fruit tree there, and the history of that homestead. So it was always wonderful to spend time with my dad.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We certainly have enjoyed this group, spending time with your dad.
Yeah.
Okay, Jim.
I guess I'm on tap, aren't I?
You're next.
Well, I want to start off by saying,
Wait.
oh, pardon me. Okay, not my turn yet.
First, I get to introduce you
Okay.
to all these wonderful people.
Okay.
So this is Jim Wills. Jim brings kindness, respect, insight, and order to the table. He is always prepared. Case in point.
I have a speech here that
He has a gentle way of creating a sense of calm and confidence, a knowing that everything will turn out okay. Jim has the ability, excuse me, he is helpful. Jim has the ability to see others, consider their needs, and pave the way for them to have those needs met. He lives his values, embodies his work ethic, and shows a profound willingness to help others.
thank you. That's
You're welcome.
very kind. I hope all those things are true, but we'll see. They are, okay. Well, to start with, I want to say that I am really humbled and honored to be on this stage with a group of people like this and with all of you. I'm sure all of you folks have life experiences that you could share as we are doing. So it's really a treat to be here and have your experiences and being here, being part of my journey. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself. I'm kind of a newcomer to the Wenatchee area, of course, but I was raised in Spokane, out in the Spokane Valley. And we lived on a small piece of ground, and we had a cow, and I had a horse, and We had chickens, and we had cats, and we had dogs, and we had turkeys. And so, that was kind of our life, and it was really special being there with family and our animals. When I was at an early age, as you saw on the film, I had a speech impediment. I was what you would call a stutterer. And this was a very difficult time, and of course it made me very shy. And I have lived with that all my life, I guess. My older sister tells me about hiding in a corner when people would come to visit, because I couldn't talk without stuttering, and it was very embarrassing to me and maybe others around that type of environment. But it's really important when you are with or talk about someone that has a problem like that to know that your words will harm and last a lifetime with that individual. So we need to be kind and caring. As we saw in the film, my motto is that we all are different, but it's okay to be different. Whether our hair is different, or our ears are too big, or you're too tall or too short or whatever, it's okay to be different. During high school, and let me go back just a second. We are all different, and I credit some of the being solved from the stuttering problem with my family and Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout, and I found that being with the young fellas in our troop were kind of like a family, and we did a lot of things together, and I don't recall any comments or bad behavior because of my condition. And so I think that helped solve it. Plus, my dad was very instrumental in helping me through Boy Scouts. That's a program that a lot of us have participated in, and all the merit badges that I had to achieve to become an Eagle Scout. At the time, I didn't think too much about them, but through the years, I've realized that all those experiences from those merit badges have taught me a lot about how to do things, how to react, and what to think about different situations. So I guess I'm giving a plug for the Boy Scouts, but it is a very worthwhile program. During my high school time, I was interested in sports, but probably not very good at them. But I spent a lot of time with family and my animals and my horse particularly. But after high school, there is college. And I went to night school and drove a truck for a short time, earning enough money to start going to WSU. And interesting enough, Everett Burtz and I ended up in the same fraternity at WSU at the same time, and I think we even roomed together. So when I came onto this team and I found out Everett Burtz, I just was amazed. That's what a small world it is. But at one time, in my day, high school diploma was okay. You could get a job. When you someone asked, well, what was your education? I had a high school diploma. But now you need a college education. And you can do this in so many different ways, as we've seen. I have a granddaughter that's got a job and she's going to school. You can, and through work study programs or loans or whatever, but there is a way to go to college if you really, really have a desire to do such. My older sister and I raised chickens for several years, trying to save enough money to start our college education. But I went to college at WSU, and the first year was okay. The second year, I got in trouble, and I fell into the alcohol trap. And I found it was much more fun to be in the bar downtown with my buddies than back at the house studying my courses like I should have. It was disastrous, and tell you, falling into the alcohol trap, I cannot believe what would have happened to my life if I had not met my wife on my third year. She turned me around completely, and we were married the following summer, and we had a happy marriage of 65 years. So a college education is important. After college, I went to work for a paper company. You know, I'm repeating some of these things that you saw in the film, and I'm kind of awkward about that, but I guess that happened to all of us. But anyway, I went to work with a paper company in Spokane, and I found very quickly that if you do a good job, and you are recognized by your peers, other salesmen, and management, there are perks that you can receive. And after about 2 years in Spokane, they transferred me down to Moscow, Idaho, where WSU and the University of Idaho, of course, are located in Pullman and Moscow. And it was we did a good job there, and after about 4 years, I finally decided that maybe I would like to become self-employed. And so, as you saw in the film, I bought a drive-in restaurant in Pullman, and we bought another one in Spokane. I had a good friend that used to work for me, and one day the phone rang, and Ron said, "Jim, I'd like to come back to Pullman. Maybe we can, or into Cheney, maybe we can work something out about the drive-ins." So he showed up shortly later, and so we went to Spokane and bought another restaurant for him. And then I got the idea that, well, you know, drive-ins are great, but maybe I need to have a steakhouse. So we tried that in Cheney. But after 10 years of going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning and getting home at 1 o'clock that night was not very acceptable to the family. So I quit those, sold them all out, and went to work at WSU. And I found that was very satisfying. I found that in that type of an environment, you can get a position and you can either stay in the position and be happy, or you can try to advance. And by advancement, you can found other positions within the university and move lateral from one to the other. I started out in staff personnel, which is human resources there. And I moved to the budget office, and then I moved to the chemistry department, and then I ended up director of Office of Grant and Research Development. And the first day I went into that job, the dean of the graduate school had come over to my office in chemistry and asked me if I would be interested in coming over and trying to start this new office. And well, I didn't really know what it was, other than the fact that I enjoyed helping faculty members in research proposals and research environments. So I went over to the graduate school and sat there the first day with a secretary and didn't have much idea what I was supposed to be doing, but found that by making friends and relationships with the faculty, I could build an office where I could help them process and receive grant and research awards. So it ended up, after 15 years in that position, I probably have read, I don't know how many thousands of research proposals, and our job was to make the budgets correct and make sure that the patent agreements were acceptable to the university, and negotiate with the sponsors that were providing the money for the projects. And it was very rewarding, and I learned that to be caring and responsible and dependable in your job, you can advance and prove to yourself that you are worthwhile. I really appreciate Deborah and Teresa for this past year that we've been meeting. These two ladies are really something. And like I said to Deborah, when I first got here, she said, well, I'm going to ask you some questions. And I said, well, Deborah, don't ask me the question, how do you feel something from your heart? And you know, I don't know how to answer that question. And she's asked me that several times in the past. And I still haven't figured it out.
And I promised not to ask him.
So anyway, they have been wonderful and have been understanding and helpful, because I think you probably all know or don't know, but I did lose my wife last February. And so I've been trying to struggle with how to continue my life being alone. And May addressed a lot of good things that might be possible. And so I'm trying those, but of course I have Reba, who is my little girl. She's home right now in a crate.
She's a dog.
Oh, it's a dog. Oh, you thought I had a daughter in the crate. Oh, boy. Now the police will probably be coming in. Anyway, thank you both for all you have done and putting on this program. It's really wonderful.
Thank you. Well, shall we open this up to questions?
We have two mic runners, Robin and Sherry, and they will come to you if you raise your hand and give you an opportunity to ask your question. And then Deb or I will repeat the question, because sometimes it's hard for people up here to hear.
I have a question for Suzanne. We're longtime friends and taught together. Suzanne, you're a fabulous musician. I'd like to know how music fit into your ideas of meaningful relationships.
Of the which relationships?
Meaningful.
Meaningful. Oh, meaningful. Thank you. Thank you, Marie. Well, music is just at the core of everything in my being. I don't think I have spent a day without some form of musical expression, and it serves as a bridge across which you can travel into people's zones where you might not be invited otherwise. So it can be a magical bridge that joins you with someone else. I look out in this room and I see musician friends of mine, and how treasured life is with music, any form of music. I don't know if that answers your question, Marie, but okay.
I have a question for May. Can you tell me a little bit, like growing up, or like hobbies that you had, or things that helped you fill time that was difficult, waiting time, time where family was abroad or overseas, as you mentioned, or was it all work that got you through and family members? But were there any hobbies like music or other things that kind of helped you stay on a steady course?
Yeah.
She's asking if you had any hobbies while your husband was away overseas that helped you get through the days, and what did you do with your time? Is that right, Marion?
Well, as the head of the household, you do all of those things. And are there times? Yes. I was into, normally, of course, I did sewing. That was part of, making all the clothes for the girls and myself as well, which we did at that time. But the thing that I had picked up from my mother at that time was crewel work, is working with yarn and embroidery. And so after you would get the evening news at night, and mostly you would try to watch the news at 9 or 10 after the children have gone to bed, I would sit there and wait for the news to come on, watching television, and do my embroidery work. It was a creative thing. Anything that is creative is distracting from what's going on, because you have to concentrate on this, and it takes your mind off of that. And so basically that was it. We had close neighbors across the way, and always there were, friends of the girls coming by, and family obligations, observations, and things going on. So you tried to live a normal life all the while. And as I said, you're sitting out there. We happened to live out in Lower Sunny Slope. It was a beautiful place. It was the days when I could even trust my children to go down to the river by themselves without being guilty of neglect. So we had that kind of an idyllic setting. We were very fortunate. As I said, we weren't isolated from family or trying to take on, and do a normal life. So we were fortunate. We had a swimming pool. First time in my life I ever had a tan. But, there's the water to change. There's the pool to clean. There's the house to keep. There's the shopping to do. So you do all of those things of normal life. You just do it double time because you are both people. So I was really busy. Felt lucky to have an hour or two to do my embroidery work.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Jim. Wiley.
The smart one.
The smart one.
How did you make money by raising chickens for college?
Well, they were Rhode Island Reds to start with. And what we did, we built a chicken house, and my sister and I would buy the little pullets in the early spring, and we would raise 300 or 400 chickens until they were fryer size, which was, about 8-9 weeks, I guess. And then in those days, a lot of chickens were sold as live chickens. I can remember people coming to the house with a big garbage bag, and they might buy 2 or 3 chickens, and they would put the chickens in the garbage bag, and that's how they bought them and took them home. What they did with them, I don't know, but they did that. But we sold the chickens, and at the time, my father was very insistent on making sure that we realized any profit that we were making from this. And we had a series of books where we had to pay for electricity for the chicken house, and we paid for all the feed, we paid for all the expenses associated with those chickens. And at the end of the fryer season, they were all gone, and that helped support our initial entrance fees at the college.
So, Jim, what did you charge for a chicken?
What did I charge for a chicken? I don't know. I'm sure that it was a reasonable price, but when you've got 400 chickens and you make $1 a piece, maybe that's $400. I don't know. But that's a good question.
I have a question for everyone. There are more people in this world now than there were when you were born. I just wonder how many great-grandchildren all of you have brought into this world.
You're asking how many great-grandchildren they have?
Well, I can answer that to start with. As I said, we moved to Wenatchee from Pullman, and we've been here about 3 years. And we moved into retirement home to start with. And I had done a lot of talking at home and figuring about the costs and how we were going to get along and all that sort of thing. Once we moved into the house, into the home, we were there for 3 months, and Joyce, my wife, and I decided that, you've all heard this, there's too many old people in the home, and it was time for us to move on. So we bought a house, and it's fairly large, and thank goodness we made that decision, because quite often, all of my 4 children here in Wenatchee, I have 4 children, 4 great-grandchildren. Is that right, Nancy? 4 great-grandchildren. And we have birthdays and that sort of thing. There's usually about 20 of us gathering at my house, and they all bring food. We have wonderful times, laughing and joking and just enjoying each other. And so with 4 great-grandchildren and 4 children and stepsons and granddaughters and Reba. That's my opinion.
Does Everett have any great-grandchildren?
Dad has two, a son and a daughter. Great-grandchildren, right? Yeah. 2. 3. That's correct, because my niece just had a baby too, yeah. So I'm kind of centered around the compound. So, and they range in age from 8 months to 8. Yeah. So 1 in Okanagan and 2 in East Wenatchee. But we also have a lot of honorary grandchildren in our family. Dad is semi-adopted the Simonson family as his family, and so there's 5 more there, and other friends who consider him to be their grandfather or great-grandfather. So it's more than just the biological count.
You know, that's a big aspect of eldering, is being an adopted grandparent or great-grandparent. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm the beneficiary of many adopted grandchildren and honorary grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So I haven't any biological, but I have many children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren from my heart.
I'm weird. We already knew that. I have no grandchildren.
Okay.
Or great.
Okay.
And I haven't adopted any.
She seems fine with that.
I don't think I could cope.
And that gives the rest of us hope.
Right.
And consolation.
You can see why she's so happy.
I've not always been happy. But it just goes to show, I am so comfortable and so at ease with my new friends. You see, most of my life, and particularly in the real estate life, it's 24/7. You watch for the phone, you listen, you answer, you
Yep.
A lot of those beautiful relationships, but they're only transactional and temporary. And so to gather a large group of people and friends around the table, that is not there. And so while my friends, all of them, are expressing kind of an isolation, I can join them in that feeling of isolation. There's no other footsteps in the house, except for your dog. It's just one of those things. It goes to say, we're all different.
Yeah.
We make our way in different ways.
That's very good.
Morgan?
My question is somewhat for Jim, but it can be for everybody. Jim, specifically, I wanted to ask what you think the secret to a 65-year marriage is. But in general, I'm wondering what you all think the secret to long-lasting relationships are.
Well, 65 years seems like maybe 5 to start with. And Joyce and I, when we met in college, as I said, I had the alcohol problem. Joyce came from a Christian Science background. You can see very quickly why she straightened me out. And, she was very supportive of all the things that I was doing and trying. I can remember when we would get very busy at the drive-ins, I would call Joyce. We lived about a block away. She'd come running down the hill, grab an apron, go to work, waiting on customers or whatever. So she was very supportive of everything I did. When I wanted to start a steakhouse, she just kind of went along with that and said, well, maybe we can eat there now and then. And so I don't really remember any time that we really had a disagreement over anything. And if we did, I'm sure that before the day was over, we were both apologizing and saying, let's get over this and move on. And so it was a wonderful relationship. She had her life, I had mine. She had many clubs and many friends, and I was always the one that went along with her and enjoyed her friends. And so I think compatibility and compassion and friendliness and whatever consisted of that 65 years. And I'll tell you, I do miss her.
Suzanne, do you have anything?
Boy, I wish I knew. I just think maybe the greatest gift you can give a partner is acceptance. Save the criticism, save the I'm going to make you a better person, save all the heavy lifting and just enjoy, laugh, love. It's not that hard to do.
What do you think Everett would say?
Well, I've only been married for 40 years, so I'm still working.
You have something to say too.
I think one of the things is to choose the right spouse, and God has blessed me with that, and she's here, so I'm glad I said that. But my folks worked together. They had common goals when they married, and they had common goals throughout their life, and I think that made a big difference. And they weren't in competition with anybody else. They didn't have to have a bigger boat or a bigger house. They were happy with what they needed, and anything above that was just a celebration.
So this is a question for the four of you. I've heard that, I heard my dad Jim say that when Debbie would say to him, well, what are you feeling in your heart? And he would have trepidation. I can relate to that because going within ourselves can be difficult. So my question for the four elders is, what has this experience been like for you to go within, to seek your wisdom and courage as an elder and then be in front of us sharing?
Repeat that one.
She's asking, what has this, first she talked about, we ask that you go into your heart. And she's also asking, what has it been like for you going into your experiences and finding your wisdom? What has this experience been for you?
Well, I think that to answer Susan's question, the four of us, when we've gotten together,
each time I've thought, well, these ladies would probably have an agenda, and we would follow that to prepare ourselves for this event. But that didn't happen. You know, we would get together, and I will probably admit my fault, because I would probably be the first one that would say something or ask a question, and that sparked the conversation for the rest of the hour or hour and a half. And that was very rewarding, because it brought out in me and in all of us, I think, things that we really have not thought about or talked about to anybody. For instance, I don't think my family ever knew I had a stuttering problem. And that brought all that to mind, and feeling difficult about it, but maybe embarrassed, maybe not wanting to remember that, not feeling that that was really important to anybody other than myself, and the shyness that goes with that is hard to explain to anybody. When I brought this up with my sister, she said, Jim, I've seen you so many times walking down the street and someone coming towards you, and you would go across the street to avoid that encounter. And, you know, folks, I still do it. Thank you.
Well, let me confess, this experience has been deeply emotional, because so many things have happened to each of us in the process. And talking about oneself is not usually my favorite topic. I would prefer to know more about you. So that was a telling thing for me, to dive and to be more introspective about my life. I like to think that I think about doing the right things and charting a reasonable course, but to just dive deep into self and think about things from the time you were a child, I encourage you to try it. It's pretty amazing. And it is very emotional, and it's healing, and you find support wherever the comment comes from, no matter whether it's accompanied by tears or a question. The support from this group of friends has been extraordinary. Elder Speak is a magical experience. I had no idea where we were going, and I'd been to Elder Speak. But it's not a one-size-fits-all, because each participant brings something special.
Well, I'm a little bit speechless, because the Elder Speak were the process of probing back and sharing with. I would almost say that we are kind of a unique group of four. I think we were a unique group of four when we started, because truly it wasn't until after the second or third meeting we were sharing things with one another we had never shared before.
Exactly.
And so there is a bonding. And so, you know, will we be lifetime friends? Who knows? But there was an experience from each that we will always truly appreciate.
Absolutely.
And like I say, that deep dive, and I love your term of that dive. It is. I remember small things from my childhood, small things from my adulthood that had been filed in that wastebasket somewhere. And they weren't things that needed to be in a wastebasket. For instance, the one thing that I have shared with you along the way, why on earth did I end up in boarding school? This little kid,
Yes.
there you are. It was like moving to Mars. And you say, why? Well, I discovered, I think, the story I will live with forever, that my father was determined his children, his girls, would have an education. Now, he lost his mother when he was 13 and took up over some of the household chores, lived a dominated life for 40 years on that farm, doing things as his father had done them. Now, we get back to this education thing. His mother had been the first school teacher in Bridgeport. Now, this is a woman who pioneered. She came west. She owned some land. She taught school. She was his role model. And so he passed it on.
Connecting the generations, May.
Connecting.
It ripples forward, it ripples backwards.
It's ripple, ripple, ripple. There is an effect of every day, the words you say, the motions you go through. It all has effect on whatever audience is present. And so that's my other hot spot, as you know, words.
So just so you know, Jim, Everett told us this is the most social he's ever been in his life.
Yeah. One of my
Eyes were sparkling.
One of my favorite memories of meetings with Everett was when he said, I cannot believe how social I'm being. Willow should be here. She's the social one. He surprised himself.
He certainly did. And listening to him talk about elder speak, he started bringing up stories that he hadn't shared with me before. So I thought that was a great idea. And of course, going through what we're going through now, this was kind of a synergy because I'm already processing a lot of these things. And to get a chance to talk to everybody here about them has been very good for both Dad and for me.
That touches on.
I remember Jim
My heart.
saying after the interview, the film, because that's done before we even know what we're doing. We have no idea what we're doing. And it's very probing. And I remember Jim saying, I said things I didn't necessarily want to share. My children are going to be surprised. Well, I think my son would tell you, the son who's here today would say he learned things about me he didn't know too.
I guess those are what you call skeletons in the closet.
They're out now.
We are almost done. Yeah. Do we have time for one more question?
It's not really a question. I'm just going to share, May, you impacted my life and a lot of the young women. I came in '77 with the Forest Service. And, you work out of town, you come home, you want to do something. I could walk in your shop. You had all the wonderful fabrics. You had classes. So myself, my friends, grandparents, everybody. There are so many albums, photo albums, baby gifts, wedding gifts, dining room table patterns that wouldn't have been on our table if it hadn't been for you in your shop. And then I was able to do the real estate class with you later on, and you are the most professional real estate woman in the Valley, and I wish more people would take example to how you ran your business and how wonderful you were for the Valley. So you can consider us some of your extra grandchildren and children. We love you dearly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think Steve has one more thing he wants to say, and then we can.
Well, while we're waiting for him to walk up, I would like to recognize the people from Mountain Meadows in the row here. That is wonderful that you have come today. Thank you for that. Mountain Meadows, it looks like a wonderful spot.
I don't, there's nothing to add, right? what can one say? But I was struck by the connection between the depth of vulnerability and the depth of courage that has been demonstrated here, and the levity when life, I know, has been challenging. What courage. As you can see, Elder Speak is more than a 2-hour event. Deb and Teresa and this group of elders have dedicated a year to bringing this event to the community. At least a round of applause, please. You can certainly see how deep the work goes. This is one aspect of the Ripple Foundation. The Ripple Foundation does other profound and deep work in our community. Please check us out, ripplefoundation.org. And if you would like to support Elder Speak or any of the Ripple Foundation programs, we would love your support. So we're going to finish up. There are food and drink out front. Please make yourself at home there. No need to rush out. Grab a friend and talk for a few. And the elders will be out also.
Yes, I was just wanting to remind everyone to, if the ushers would come up to help the elders off the stage and let them exit before the rest of you exit. That would be great.
So we will all convene in the front in a few minutes once the elders are out there. So thank you for coming. Please spread the word. Please take the wisdom. There was a lot of it home with you. And we'll see you again in another Ripple Foundation event. Thanks.
Thank you.